everyone. My name is Batul, and I'll be talking to you today about slum formation and demolition. So, the summer after my freshman year at NYU, I visited my sister while she was doing field work in what is known as the largest slum in Asia, Dharavi. Dharavi is basically a community of squatters. So people who come to the city who may not be able to afford formal housing, so they construct their own dwellings, and entire communities can form this way. Just to give you an idea of the density of Dharavi, there's about 2,000 people living per acre. So that's massively dense. It's about 14 times the density of a downtown New York acre. So this extreme density and these conditions of poverty, this can be very overwhelming. And I was certainly overwhelmed. But I was also expecting these things venturing into the settlement. What I wasn't expecting, and what really surprised me, was the vibrancy of life and activity that was going on in this community. While my sister and I were there were bicycle delivery boys going by, mothers cooking and talking, children playing in the lanes between us, all kinds of activity going on. And I thought to myself, well, isn't a slum a place of economic depression, of idleness, of crime? As a student of urban planning and economics, I became really interested and fascinated about what was going on in this physical space. And I became particularly interested in the relationship between slum formation, which is something that is organic, unplanned, and often can't be controlled, and the profession of city planning. So considering all this activity, I'd like to talk to you today about why it's both in the slum dwellers and government's interest not to demolish slums, but rather to upgrade and improve them. So the first thing to consider is that the physical space of a slum provides economic and social benefits for slum dwellers. So the economic activity within slums is wide and varied, from leather goods production to textiles, pottery. There's all kinds of activities going on. And slum communities form based on people's cultural similarities, these interconnected business activities, and also the shared struggle of working and living together in conditions of extreme poverty. Not only that, but the informal economies within slums often provide essential services to the city at large. So an example of such a service would be cycle rickshaw drivers in Delhi, many of whom are slum dwellers. They provide environmentally friendly, inexpensive rides to people all over the city. But the Delhi government has recently banned cycle rickshaw drivers in an attempt to clean up the city. Another example would be the recycling industry of Dharavi. The recycling industry handles about 80% of Mumbai's recyclables. So in this case, the industry within the slum is making up for a service that isn't adequately provided by the state. So then, if demolishing a slum is disrupting these essential economic and social networks, then how do we solve the problem of slums in cities? This is where upgrading and improvement comes in. Upgrading projects basically allow a informal slum community to transition to formal housing and get people formal services from the state. And upgrading projects can range from getting settlements adequate solid waste management, to getting all of the homes within a slum running water, to helping communities secure land tenure so that they have formal rights to their land. Over the last decade, 22 million people have been lifted out of slum conditions annually due to upgradation projects and improvement projects. So that's 220 million people that are no longer living in slum conditions due to improvement projects. Another thing to consider is that a study done in the 1980s showed that 90% of urban household growth in South Asia occurred within slum communities. So this is a reflection of the fact that slum dwellers will gradually make their space habitable over time by investing their financial resources, their labor, their construction materials into their homes to make these informal dwellings their homes over time. So from an economic perspective, demolition then doesn't make sense because it's reducing all of this labor and these financial resources of an individual to zero in a matter of minutes, the time that it takes to accelerate a bulldozer. So why is this important? Although we have 22 million people being lifted out of slum conditions annually due to improvement projects, with increased urbanization, we also have 27 million new slum dwellers in cities globally. So then, in order to plan for the future, we need to learn from the resourcefulness and efficiency of these communities and build upon what they've already created for themselves. Thank you.